Hey everyone, this is Allan McKay and welcome to episode 23. I'm here with Eddie Perblerg, the lead product manager for 3D Studio Max. Let's get in there.
Welcome to the Allan McKay Podcast. Allan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Allan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Allan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on AllanMcKay.com.
Okay guys, welcome, and I'm really psyched to introduce Eddie Perblerg, who we've been leading towards this for a while. We were talking about this recently at dinner in Vegas, and I wanted to follow up and get an interview going just to get some insight into 3D Studio Max and more importantly behind the scenes a little bit at Autodesk and what goes on, as well as with Eddie, who's been around forever in terms of the industry, so he's got a lot of really great knowledge and really great insight to share. So I thought this would be a really awesome episode. Now, I will mention that recently I've been writing a lot of content which I'm going to be sending out and have been sending out to my list. So if you want to get a lot of exclusive content, please check out www.allanmckay.com/inside, and that will have a lot of really great info. I'm already sending out one this week, which was how to get a promotion, which is more of a risk-free approach that has worked a lot of times as to how to get that pay rise, the promotion, or whatever you're going for. So this is something I wanted to write also to point out a lot of the ways not to do it, because there's a few specific ways that I find people tend to try to get a promotion, and it's really the one thing you need to avoid the most. So I just want to mention that. Check it out. And in the meantime, let's get into this interview. It's a really good one, so let's dive in. Hi everyone, this is Allan McKay, and I'm here with Eddie Perblerg, the product manager for 3D Studio Max at Autodesk. Eddie, I figure you're probably best off to give yourself a bit of an intro, because you know yourself the best. Like, who are you, and what's some of your history with Autodesk, and before that as well?
Oh, thanks, Allan. And first, thank you everybody for joining us today. I have to tell you, it's a great honor to be here. This is, I've been listening to your podcasts now since I had to go back a couple of weeks to get to the start, but this is one of my favorite entertainment features.
Awesome.
As I download you and play you back when I'm on the plane. So I really appreciate taking the time to talk with me. I feel very honored. So yes, everyone, I am the lead product manager for 3ds Max at Autodesk. We have actually four people we consider to be product managers, but I am the person that's in charge of the Max piece. And as time goes on, we have some projects that the other three that contribute to Max focus more on, but you'll see what those are in the not too distant future. So those are products that haven't been released yet, but I am the lead product manager for 3ds Max. So I am in charge of determining the direction and the strategy and the features. I have no background in coding directly, and actually you probably should be thankful of that that I don't get involved with those kinds of things. But the good news, Allan, is that we have some remarkably talented people that are working on this product that we've all fallen in love with or used at some point, or so I'm really excited about those kinds of things. In fact, we've just spent over $1 million in growing our Max development crew over the last year. So I wasn't even the start of that. It really started with an entire directive of growing the Max business and growing the Max development team. But we'll get to that in a little bit. To finish my story, I've been with Autodesk now for 8 years. Prior to being the PM for 3ds Max, I was a technical specialist. So the guy that did the demos at SIGGRAPH and NAB, AU, and AIA. Prior to that, I had a a little bit of time as a visualization artist. I also did motion graphics work for the Bradley Center in Milwaukee. I started out my life and spent a good portion of it in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So did some traveling around in the radio industry when I was fresh out of school. But
Awesome.
yeah, but when you're 24 and single, it's like a super great lifestyle. At least it was back in the day. Now it's all computer and remoted. But but when you're 30 and thinking about school districts and getting married and all that kind of stuff, the radio industry wasn't that great for that kind of stuff. So I went back to my roots and I thought of things that I really enjoyed, and two things really came to mind. So architecture and film. And so I went back to UWM for both of those. And of course, there were waiting lists for both. But I got the opportunity of working in, you know what I mean, or studying in both. So that's where I restarted my life. Yeah. So then after that, the truth is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, there are more jobs in architecture than there are in film. So, pays the bills. And and while I was going through both of those curriculums, I guess it's just my nature, but the whole thing of architectural history and film history just really didn't connect with me. But the technologies and the those kinds of things, those were the things that really excited me about those curriculums. So I was the guy that was helping architects late at night with their AutoCAD and that was me. Mm-hmm. So I worked at a number of architectural firms, and like I said, worked on there was a faith-based video game that I worked a lot on the side. I started my own little boutique visualization house doing mechanical renderings and architectural renderings and stuff like that. So, all of that led to a call from Autodesk, like I said, 8 years ago to show off the software. So.
Cool. And that's when you became like a Gary Davis?
Yes, exactly. So I was hired in April and Gary was hired in August for these, we were teammates. So, and that's still awesome. Are.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my background, you know what I mean? Motion graphics for sports arenas and faith-based video games and visualizations. And, what's really kind of cool about all of that is I did it all with 3ds Max, and that just kind of shows what 3ds Max how it kind of fits into all these different areas. So.
No, I love that. And I kind of love the fact that I get to know like a whole history about you and most of the people that come on the podcast, just by getting to go through that, because typically I'll know people for a really long time, and then I get to ask questions where I'm like, holy crap, I didn't even know that. So that's awesome, man.
And, the radio thing and the improvisational comedy stuff, that tends to surprise people a lot.
No, it's cool.
Wait, I forgot to mention that part.
We'll keep coming back. I kind of figured just to start off, I might kind of throw you on the deep end with just something fun. But I mean, you obviously get to travel the world. A lot of you Autodesk guys do, and I know because I get to usually get dragged along with you. But I mean, one of the key things is that you meet with hundreds of customers all over the world. I mean, I kind of imagine you probably get to see Max and most Autodesk software kind of used in really wacky ways other than the typical kind of stuff. So I was kind of curious, what are some of the more out there or crazy ways that you've seen these tools being used?
Well, speaking of Gary Davis, he and I were on a little junket through New York State, and we did a couple of user groups and things like that, and stopped in at a couple of customers. And one of the customers that he dragged me to does medical illustrations. So everything, they just finished up, I think, a tonsil feature, and they were all proud of how their pus looked. and then they were working on on bone fractures, you know what I mean, and how they were using subsurface scatter to get a more realistic bone. And it was just like, and then 20 minutes later, I'm meeting one individual woman just came running up to me and gave me a hug. and said that she loved 3ds Max because she designs jewelry with it.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so and then we went to a couple of VFX houses, and then what I mean, and then dinner. It was really, again, it's really the power of Max that it applies to people in all these different environments. I did a tour of Asia and met with some of the biggest game companies and film companies out there, and did some time in Europe and met with the people that do automotive illustrations, and what I mean, it's just so cool. And if there's one thing I love about this job more than anything else, it's seeing what you guys do with 3ds Max.
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool. I mean, yeah, it kind of blows my mind how many different ways it can be utilized for so much stuff. Jewelry is what I never actually thought of. So I mean, I guess it's more like 3D printing.
Well, I don't think she's taken it that far yet.
You should tell her to.
but she was very excited to tell me about how she figured out how to animate the pieces, the beads going along a thread,
Hmm.
and for her that was miraculous. And some of us might just kind of go whatever, but that was day 3. But for her it was miraculous, and I had to celebrate it with her. So
That's awesome. I kind of miss those days, and I'm sure you're nostalgic about this too. But like, getting the demo CDs of like 3D Studio Max and Character Studio, get like the Cherub and all these other demos,
yeah.
and like anything you see is just like, I want more of this. This is so cool. So I mean, just to see other people kind of going through that is, pretty kind of brings you back to those times. I mean, I love it.
As
And
far as the 3D printing stuff, I can tell you that I'm now based in the San Francisco office, and while I may be a few rows away from the CEO and the vice president of M&E, I'm also just a couple of rows away from the 3D printing group, and that's having an influence. So
that's awesome.
you'll start to see some of that stuff in Max as well.
I don't know if you know this. Like I worked on God of War about like last year Super Bowl, I think. But anyway, like my girlfriend asked me what my favorite project of all time was, or one of them, and she actually went behind my back, went through all my files, managed to find like one of the shots of this like helmet crashing, and went out and got it 3D printed. And the guy who had done it, it was kind of cool actually because he knew who I was, so he was all like, "Shit, yeah, this is gonna be great." He got behind it, and he'd never done it before, but he actually printed like a fractured like helmet that's breaking and turning to ash. So I've got like this 3D sculpted like thing that looks freaking awesome just to actually get to see like particle like fragments all being printed out. So I've got this in a big glass case on my desk. So I kind of can't wait to experiment more with that kind of stuff.
You hold on to her. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think she outdid herself this Christmas, but I'll get into that later on. That's awesome, man. I'm going to go back and forth a little bit in terms of, we'll talk about Max and a
Yeah,
bit more
yeah.
about the industry, but I kind of figure, at least for me, I think these are more like nerding out questions for myself. But what's like a day in the life for you as like the lead product manager for Max?
Well, typically I wake up to 26 to 50 emails. I've trained myself not to look at them until I get on BART. So yeah, I drive myself crazy. So there's a good number of emails to rifle through. Then there typically is some kind of a coordination meeting first thing when I get into the office. That's just to get status updates as far as development is concerned, licensing objectives or, other things. And then there is usually a spreadsheet to review or a PowerPoint deck to prepare. Then there's going to probably be another meeting or two, either with a customer to kind of give them some insights about where we're going, or they want to show off what they're doing, that kind of thing. Then there's going to be a manager's meeting in there somewhere, 3 out of 5 days, and then one of the benefits of being here in San Francisco is I sit next to Mike Russo, who is the lead developer, for 3ds Max, and he and I coordinate about what can we do next. What are our customers looking for? What kind of matrix are we seeing as far as adoption of certain features, that kind of thing. So, awesome. And then so that would be a pretty typical day, Then I travel quite a bit, meeting you guys. So there's a lot of time outside the office too. So.
Yeah, I bet. I kind of, like I said earlier, before we did the call, like I kind of imagine there's probably about 10 different variations of your typical day. So that's awesome. Actually, I want to go kind of off topic for a second about email, because I mean that's something I've done a lot too, is just kind of start to build my own morning routine, and email is a big thing just because it's so easy to, for a while that was my motivation if I'm sleeping in, is just I look at my email and then 20 seconds later I'm so stressed that I'm out of bed and into my computer. I mean,
you've inspired me, by the way, with your, I saw your posts about catching up on email and clearing out your inbox, and so I've started working on that, and I've got it down to 12,000 now. So
awesome.
I'm working on it. So
anyone who knows me knows I'm obsessed with this, and I'm actually putting together like a post. I kind of almost want to do an episode about it. I just kind of wonder whether it's going to be just for myself to have to do it for my insanity, or if other people will benefit from this, but.
Well, like I said, I'm already inspired. If you have some ideas about practice and that kind of stuff, I'd love to hear it. So
if you want to get really depressed, I'm going to tell you that you're going to get to 0 one day, and you're going to be like, it's done. I'm at inbox 0. Everything is great in the world. And then the next day it's going to be like, okay, 200 emails. Then by the end of the week it's 1,000, and then you're going to be back to where you were in a few weeks' time, and then you're going to go through and do it all over again. And you're going to do that about 5 or 6 times, and then finally, over Christmas, if you're like me, you're going to spend literally 2 days just being like, nope, I'm going to find a long-term solution. So yeah, I actually will put together something, because I kept getting to 0, and I kept defaulting back to having too much stuff. And I'm actually, like, I go through that a bit where I get so much email that I'm like, okay, I'm going to dedicate tonight to replying. So I won't reply to any email because I'm going to do it that night. And then naturally things come up, and then suddenly I'm a week behind, and like things start getting, bad because I'm falling behind. And I know you're not in a position to ever be like that. So yeah, it can be.
Yeah, but brutal. The truth is you're never a failure until you stop trying. So, good on you for keeping up. We all, priorities, right? So.
Well, I'm proud to say I beat it. I finally figured it out. So
then you have to share.
That's right. I will.
Or write a book. I'd buy it.
I'll put it out as an article, I think, and we'll go from there. But honestly, I mean, I don't know. I was trying to explain this to some of my friends. Like, I don't know why, but like, it's one of those euphoric moments for me when I'm like, I did it. I don't care about like some of the other stuff I've done. I'm like, I conquered email. So yeah, I'll definitely put out a post in the coming weeks. I guess the other thing, and I wanted to actually ask you this just because I'm always curious, and I think the last time I caught up with you in Vegas, I think you were drinking a water, so it got me thinking about this. So I want to ask, like, are you a beer drinker, a Scotch drinker, or a wine drinker?
Actually, you'll laugh, but I'm allergic to alcohol, so I none of those mean anything to me. So if I ingest any alcohol, really, you can almost start a stopwatch. I'll have a migraine headache, one of those please turn off the lights and shut off the music kind of headaches.
Yep.
In about 45 minutes, and then I get a stomachy thing.
Oh, man.
Not too much later, and I didn't even realize that that's what I was dealing with. But I had to, I went to the doctor for some antibiotics or something. She said, no alcohol. And I'm like, no, I don't. And she's like, no, not even beers or anything. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't like the hangover. Mm-hmm. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I said, that hangover you get 45 minutes after you start drinking. And she's like, that's not a hangover. I just assumed that
right.
That's what everybody was dealing with. And so we did some tests, and I have no tolerance. So I guess, I'm your designated driver.
Sweet. Okay.
So you can always take advantage of that.
That's totally fine. I mean, Neil Blevins, he's not a big drinker either for similar reasons. So except in Vegas actually, we got some margaritas. But typically he's one to keep away from that because I think he goes through some similar stuff. So
You guys are a bad influence.
yeah.
I don't think I was at the table for more than a few minutes, and you guys had food coming and drinks coming,
Well,
and
that was at the House of Blues at like 11 o'clock at night, and like I'm proud to say I think I was the only one who didn't go out like for the rest of the night because I remember Sol Rogers, who I'm actually going to have on. I already have had him on, but the episode I think is coming up. I think he didn't get home till like 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning, and yeah, I mean, you know, I'm happy to say like I went home and I went back to the hotel. I was responsible, so one of the few. But going back to Max, I mean, what is the size of your development team for Max? And I guess also it can't hurt to say like where you guys all spread out across too. But
right. So I'm not the best person to ask that. I'll have to check in with Mike as far as exactly how many people we have. I certainly haven't met them all, and like I said, we're growing almost weekly, and we even have open headcounts right now up on Autodesk.com. So we're still looking for more people, but as far as the dispersion, or where we're at, we're all over the world, Allan. So there's the major team is in Montreal, and that's where a good part of Max is developed and designed. And then we have two of our main designers, Kelsey Simpson and Martin Coven, are both in Austin, Texas. That was just coincidental, but that's the way that kind of worked out. So I think they meet for coffee, and that's like a temporary Autodesk office.
cool. Starbucks / Autodesk.
So then, then we have the San Francisco office. That's me, and like I said, Mike. We have Peter Waji. I don't know if you guys know Peter's name, but he's been associated with Max for, I think 15 years now or so. He's
It'd be almost longer than that. If you don't know Peter, then you should be ashamed of yourself. Cause, yeah.
Well, I was telling him today that what he brings to Max as far as the knowledge and the talent that man has, it's amazing. But
actually, I'm just going to intervene for 1 second to say that 3D Studio DOS, like Gary Yost, who's kind of like the godfather of Max, he was releasing a lot of iPath routines. iPath routines were plugins essentially for Max, and there's a lot of really amazing stuff that he's putting out. Like I've actually got images of fire and explosions I was doing using his iPath routines back in the 90s, and then when Max came out, there were a few guys like Johnny O and Peter Waji. Obviously, Peter was one of the guys like putting out like so many amazing plugins. I think it really kind of, in a way, started the trend where Max could do a lot of amazing stuff. Like I've actually showed off, just to be a dick to Maya guys, I showed off like the modify panel a few days ago, which is part of Max 1, and still got some oohs and ahs from it. And the thing is that like he was doing all these amazing tools that were coming out that were just like phenomenal, and he would continue to just develop all the stuff that kind of added so much to an already powerful package. So I mean, I just love what he's kind of contributed over the last almost 2 decades.
Yeah. So I can't help but to agree. And the truth is, I asked him, what does he want to give up? What does he have in his closet that maybe he wants to throw our way? And talk to him about putting together a package. The same thing with Tom Hudson. So Tom's in southeastern Wisconsin. For those of you who don't know Tom Hudson, Tom was the original the developer working on 3D Studio back in the day. In fact, Gary was kind of like me, and then Tom was the coder, and the first code name or the first executable for 3ds Max before it became a product was Thud. And if that came from the T from Tom and HUD from Hudson. So,
Nice.
you know what I mean? To have, somebody of that caliber working on Max currently is just, again, you guys have to start seeing it already with, the way he implemented open subdivisions, modeling, and that stuff. So those are the kind of guys we have working on this.
That's awesome. And like, who are some of the key staff? Like, you guys got a pretty amazing team. I mean, like, guys like Martin Coven, who I've known Martin forever. He's like a rock star at Max. But I met him when I was 21 at like a Digimation lunch at Seagraff in 2003. Had like big chats to him about a lot of stuff. Really cool dude. And then didn't see him again until I met up with you guys at Blur end of last year or mid last year. But like, he came on. Like, there's a lot of really amazing guys you've got actually on your team at the moment.
Yeah, I did a little blog post up on the area about Martin. So if you don't know Martin, you certainly do know his work from his time at ILM, some of his other projects that he's worked on. So I still tease him about. I guess he had to work on Jar Jar Binks for a while for one of the Star Wars episodes, but he did a lot of work on Pirates and War of the Worlds and that kind of stuff. So again, he brings a lot of very exciting ideas. If I think about who is my, who do I kind of talk to about developing the hoverboard, for Max, Martin kind of gives me those kinds of insights. Then I have Jenny O'Connor. She wrote the book Mastering Mental Ray. And her talents go far beyond mental ray to understanding rendering technologies for all that kind of stuff. And, she works with Zap Anderson in Sweden, who...
I was just about to bring up Zap, so I'm glad you did first.
Yeah, so, can you imagine a better dream team there? And, Daniel Levesque is in Germany, so I have a whole team of people that work in Shanghai that are incredible when it comes to their devotion and their capability of doing this kind of stuff. So, and then I just met our latest hire, Nathan. He came to us from DreamWorks. I apologize. I don't remember Nathan's last name, and I don't want to, mess it all up. But, again, super excited about some of the stuff that he revamped or was integral in revamping DreamWorks animation pipeline, and now we have him working on Max. So again, a great addition. And then there are some of the unsung heroes in Montreal and around the world that are just creating all sorts of good stuff.
That's
so
right. But they're French, so we won't mention them. I'm just kidding.
Well, they'd be first to admit that they're not French. They're they're Quebecers. So
I always hear it the other way around. It's like, we are Quebec, we are French. But I actually got to go to Paris in next month. So my girlfriend, again mentioning her, but she's Canadian, so she's mentioning how she always struggled to learn French. So last night I decided, okay, I got a month. I'm going to learn French before I go over there, just to prove it's easy to pick up languages. So that's my new challenge for this month.
Wow.
Wish me luck.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, just before we got on the call, you're talking about the Gunslinger event. So I wasn't sure whether to bring that up or not.
Why? Because you didn't come again. So everybody, Allan and I have a running joke. I invite him to what we call a Gunslinger every year, and he's, because of his schedule, it's difficult for him to get there. But then he always teases me that he didn't get an invite.
I swear I didn't, and because I was actually at Blur at the time, and like guys like John Martini and a few of the other guys, they're all like, yeah, I'm going, up north to do the event and blah blah blah. And I was actually thinking at the time, like, man, like, that'd be so cool if I got to go. And so when I bumped into you guys, you're like, yeah, you didn't come along. And I'm like, I didn't get an email. And I haven't actually checked my email, so I don't want to actually point out that I'm probably wrong here, but I'm just going to say that you guys never emailed me, okay? So
okay. And it was probably buried in or quickly just tossed away in one of your massive cleaning efforts.
I was just about to say that. It's because I've been like so heavy on optimizing and filtering my email now that it just went straight to spam. I'm just kidding. But do you want to talk about that at all? Or?
Oh yeah, the Gunslinger event is very interesting. So, and one of the things that we've implemented since I started at Max a year ago, in the development role, is how do we get a good pulse on the customer? And so I I travel and meet you guys, but one of the things that was always missing was, I'd go to one firm and they would, share with me some of their wish list items. I would go to another firm and they would share with me some of their wish list items. That's all really good. But one of the things that it doesn't help me do is get a good sense of the commonalities, or some of the things that we can just improve in the whole workflow. So the way we tackle that is we have what is a Gunslinger event, and our Gunslingers for 3ds Max are a little bit different than what maybe you encounter if you do any for any other Autodesk products. They typically sit you down at a beta or a version of the software and have you pound on it and tell you what's broken, what's not, what you don't like, that kind of stuff. Ours is far more a discussion, Allan, where together as a community we figure out where to go with 3ds Max. So having people from all of our what we would consider our key industries, film and VFX, games, and design, visualization, and animation, all in the same room. And then this year we even added people who don't really use the software but would love to figure out how to, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so all together, about 30 of us talk about, somebody like I think Paul Neal has shared that he was there. So he'll have, certain ideas and needs, but how does that fit with somebody who's never used the software before? And how does that work with somebody who needs improvements in, back burner or something like, you know what I mean? So we put what ends up to be close to 1,000 Post-it notes up on the board about what, little ideas, big ideas, things we can get accomplished in a month, things that we need to, spend years on. All of those go up on the board, and then it gets filtered down and down and down until we figure out what would probably be a good release for the next year. That's awesome. So, yeah, so, what I mean? So we hold these events every year. I make sure that I post all the stuff that you guys tell me when I visit. Those are all Post-it notes up there. And then, you know what I mean? And then the really cool part of it, Allan, is the fact when priorities come together and commonalities start to show through, and, and helping hands and, all that kind of stuff is really what I think is 3ds Max's biggest strength is the community behind it. And I know sometimes the community gets frustrated, and I know that it's all because we love this software so much, and we do such great things with it. That's all the cool parts of it. But so we wanted to try to create a little version of that, in a boardroom somewhere. So you might be wondering, well, how are you chosen? You know what I mean? And
the answer is you PayPal you $5. And,
well, gunslingers are those that can attend that come from what we call a charter member. And a charter member you may know as a Lighthouse account or, some other, directive, or so charter members are a group of people that we have in, at 3D that use 3ds Max that really help us develop the software. So when we start up with a new solution for you guys, we call on a number of charter members to help guide where that should go, because I don't want 3ds Max to be Eddie's perfect 3ds Max or yours, Allan, or what I mean. It can't be one person's vision. It's got, in order to serve the community, it has to be developed by the community. So a developer and a number of charter customers will sit down. What does it need to do? What does it need to accomplish? And then throughout the course of the development cycle, they'll Skype together or somehow connect and the developer will show them the new dialog box and how it's laid out, and does, you know what I mean? Does this have the functionality? All those kinds of things. And we're currently running at about 30 charter members, but by the end of next year, I want to have that 10 times the amount, because I do know you guys are busy, and I pray that you don't have time all the time to talk to me because you have so many projects going on. And so, and like I said, the more cooks that are involved in this, I think the better the product will end up being.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the initiatives I have for this year, is growing the number of people that are contributing to the development of Macs, and then and also the number of people that are testing it. So we want to grow our beta participation as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I guess you can go on, I mean, how, if you wanted to beta test and you kind of felt like you had a lot you could contribute, what would be the way that you could kind of get on the beta team?
Well, like you, if they emailed me, it would probably get lost.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll have to figure those mechanisms of, I think you just go to beta.autodesk.com and volunteer. And so, that.
Yeah. And also, obviously, I mean, I know a lot of guys who, actually, I've got a lot of friends who, it kind of surprises me when we meet up at a lot of events and we'll be chatting, and then one of my friends who I've known from a completely different world will come over and chat to you guys, and it kind of blows my mind that you all know each other as well. And I think it's just because there are certain people who are just really proactive in doing stuff and being part of the community. And I mean, I think that for a lot of us, that's how it kind of initially happened. And even going to events like going to Autodesk University, SIGGRAPH, other events like that, getting to know who's who and showing them like what you're doing. I mean, I always kind of mention like going through the side door instead of like going through the typical channels. I mean, the more you get to know everyone, the more that they're going to pay attention to what you're doing. And if you're doing something really cool, then, that's usually where you're going to start to get the spotlight put on you.
Well, that's kind of how I ended up where I am today. Is I started off just teaching classes at AU and got some people's attention, and that's where the initial conversations with Autodesk started, and the rest is awesome. History. Yeah.
I'll just indirectly, I'm gonna lead this into the Gunslingers thing for a sec, but initially, like, the way I started doing this podcast was initially I tried doing something else, which was Artist Insight series, where I put together like 25 episodes of stuff that I shot really horribly because I'd be traveling around and trying to bring lights and cameras, and it was just terrible to do. I've still got 20 episodes I got to put out of that, but it all came from initially, I'd be at ILM, place like that, having lunch, and you'd have people at the table who would be talking about, oh, in Star Wars we did this, and, in Titanic we ran into this issue, and the amount of conversations you'd have where it's just like, whoa, like I'm learning a lot just being here on this, and like at the same time, like at SIGGRAPH, places like that, I'd be pulled on the panels, and I'd be sitting there with like 8 or 9 other people, like the Neil Blevins, the Brandon Davis, the Zap Andersons, all next to you, and bit by bit you'd be asked questions, and we'd all kind of start chatting and then start getting into these really engrossed conversations. Like Zap would talk about, motion blur samples and mental ray and how you got to do this, and suddenly we're all kind of feeding off of each other, and I'd kind of realize like having the personal attention, all of you guys, is having a bunch of guys who've been in it, doing it for a really long time, and all just kind of conversing on stage. Like everyone in the audience is just frantically writing that stuff down because it's just like, they could see all the vital information just spewing out of us. And for me, that's what kind of inspired me to do this, was just to kind of get lots of people who know their shit and have been doing it for a long time and get them to kind of give a lot of insight into their career that typically a lot of people probably don't have a chance to kind of access. And for me, the Gunslinger event, like, again, I have not been, but
you look at your inbox.
I know that I'll be number one on the calendar for next year. You'll be like, this year you'll be like, okay, not to be a dick, I'm emailing him, I'm texting him, I'm fucking flying a plane over his house. But I kind of picture it being the same way, that like you're right, like getting one person even to talk with Autodesk individually, you're going to get like, okay, well, this is what's bugging me. But if you get a bunch of people in a room, maybe some booze, but you're going to get everyone feeding off of each other and be like, oh yeah, on this production we ran into this issue. It's like, well, I found a good solution. Yeah, that'd be awesome for Max. Here's the main, everyone starts to feed off of each other, and that's how you get a lot of that going. I kind of picture those events being like golden, just because you've got these like big names, really substantial people who know their stuff, all getting in there and really kind of feeding off of each other's energy.
It is amazing, and it's it's very fulfilling, from my perspective, to again see the interaction, to the learning, the helping, the sharing. Like I said, you have somebody with 20 years of Max experience, helping somebody who's never even opened up the software, or we gave them a couple of days of training so they could at least speak to what they would hope the software would be. And those are the two people that are spending a lot of time together, so that one can learn from another. And then one of the things that we're looking for the future of 3ds Max is figuring out ways that somebody with a lot of experience can help somebody who is just looking to accomplish something quickly. And
Right.
I think that we all recognize that we have different needs from Max, different amounts of time we're going to spend in it. You maybe you and I are going to spend 60 hours a week, where somebody might spend 6 hours a month.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So how can people like us help people like them? And what could be the vehicle that we can all connect? So you know what I mean, and opportunities that way.
That'd be
And
really
it's
cool.
and it's more than just learning. You know what I mean? That's one of the parts. But if I can, if it's going to take you a week to model something up that I can do in a couple of hours, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see that all the time already. I mean, you might be in a room with people and someone's like, oh, I'm trying to figure this out. It's like, dude, there's a checkbox, just click that. They're like, wow, I've been spending hours trying to figure this out. So, yeah, I mean, for someone who's knowledgeable enough about it, like they can quickly solve a solution that might take you hours of digging and trying to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's, what I mean? So that's really some kind of a way of connecting people together in that community. You know what I mean?
That's great.
Better than forums. Those are cool. Better than, but somehow, connecting everyone together. So
That's awesome. And one last thing I'm just gonna say about like anyone like grumpy community members, stuff like that. I've been more recently, I've been advising a few game companies, like bigger game companies. Like I've had dinner with the owners of Blizzard, for instance, and they tell me stories how you get frustrated gamers who'd come in trying to shoot up the place because something changed in the game that they didn't like, and they took it to heart. And so now, like for a long time, they had bulletproof reception desks, like the glass in between them, and then now obviously in the new building in Irvine they've got security and everything. But I've heard this over and over from a lot of especially game companies where they change like a simple feature, like maybe how quickly you jump or how high you jump in a game, and get death threats from people who aren't happy with like the slight change in the game. And I think that always comes down to just the fact that when you're so close to something and you've grown so attached and invested in something that no matter what, you're never going to be 100% happy, because especially when you've got such a wide audience that you've got to tailor a product to, it's always going to, you can't please every single person on the planet.
Well, yeah, but one of the things that I've been very public about is, some of the things that have been said are kind of hurtful. You know what I mean? I could, if there was some way I could get a chunk of bulletproof glass for some of that stuff, you know what I mean? It was not physically threatening, but definitely, I felt that. But I always recognize that the worst thing is if you guys didn't care, you wouldn't even bother taking the time to write. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I always encourage, a healthy dialogue or a constructive dialogue. I think it's pretty obvious, the amount of links that I go through to try to talk to people so that I can find the best Max out there possible. So if you guys can give me an idea, without calling me a name or you know what I mean, or questioning, you know, I mean, it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. So never hesitate to grab me and pull me aside. I want to hear them. So I agree with you that, you know, as you were talking about that, you know, I personally was very disappointed in where Gears of War went. I'm a huge Gears of War fan, and you know, one was I played it over and over, and two I played it over and over, and then three they changed up the, you know, the how it played, and I was just kind of like, oh. And then I was like, well, some Gears of War is better than no Gears of War, so I played it, and I'll be damned if they didn't, you know, do a good job of doing that too. So you know, I agree.
Give it a chance. And I guess just moving more like to the broader stuff. I mean, you've got a large amount of experience in getting to see like, you know, the whole world and what's going on in terms of the industry, and you know, this is actually globalized industry. Like, I guess what's some of the stuff that's booming right now, like that you've seen, like more in terms of like major projects that in any field really have really stood out, either projects or studios?
Well, there's no doubt that, you know, the amount of VFX and, you know, projects like, you know, number of shows that involve a certain level of VFX has grown. I mean, there are even the half-hour sitcoms are throwing some VFX stuff in there now and then. So, you know what I mean? I'm amazed at what you guys are doing with Max for, you know, episodic TV. You know, I mean, with the guys at Pixo LA and I mean, the list, I'm sorry, I'm sure I just left somebody off, but everything from Fuse to ILM and the, you know, all you guys are doing just amazing stuff in outrageously short amounts of time. But also the number of indie guys that are coming up, and, you know, indie games and indie films and all of that stuff, I think is really growing. What you guys are doing just for fun or on YouTube and stuff like that. It's all of that stuff is really amazing. So these are some of the things that, you know, I'm trying to make Max easier to get stuff done faster.
That's awesome.
You know, so there's no doubt that there are, you know, products in and out of Autodesk that help you do big things, and you know what I mean? Sometimes you don't need to take a 747. So, you know, so maybe a quick Learjet ride would, you know, suffice. So cool. Also, you know, the amount of stuff that's happening in the design world, I know that rendering is becoming more and more democratized with every, you know, I think we have like some 27 different renderings stuffs at Autodesk. Every product has some kind of rendering in it somewhere, but obviously, you know, we hope that Max is always the preferred one. You know, so, but there's a lot of, you know, how do I see my design data? How do I see my simulation data? Those are the kinds of things that customers are talking to us a lot about. Can you do this with Max in that area? So
cool.
The truth is, Allan, there's no shortage of what we can do with it. So
it makes me sick. They used to be just like, wow, that person's doing something cool. Now it's like, yeah, everyone is doing amazing crap. So actually, I've got a lot of really amazing students right now. I'm just kind of like, even to some of the weekly stuff that people are putting out, it's like you tracked, built, and destroyed like a building in a live action city shot all in a week. Like, I hate you to death. You know, so it blows my mind.
Right,
you know.
Right. They used to be like what, 6 months for us. But,
yeah. Kill me.
Well, and then, you know, I mean, don't sell yourself short either. When I first met you was at the Cave last year.
Probably.
And you did a session there, and, you know, I got to sit in the back and just go, wow. You know what I mean? And like I said, I'm constantly amazed at what you guys are doing with 3ds Max, what you guys are doing with Maya, what you guys are doing with all of the stuff that you guys are using. So I'm just here to help.
One question I had, and this is more just because I guess it's the same way, if I meet someone and ask them to tell me the news of the week or whatever. But like, obviously, in terms of tech, I mean, you guys are at the forefront of seeing what's kind of out there. I mean, what is some of the cool stuff coming out, or what's your favorite stuff to see, from Oculus Rift or GPU, cloud, 3D printing, or Microsoft HoloLens? Like, what's the big game changers at the moment?
Yes.
I'm like, no, he didn't.
Yes.
You're just afraid that you're going to slip up and say something about some product that you're not allowed to mention right now.
Well, I sign all these NDAs, and it's exciting to get involved with that. Here in the San Francisco area, I don't have to remind you about some of the big innovators and what they're doing, and I'm sure that they'd like me to remind you that Autodesk tries to be that too. So but we have an entire group dedicated to reality capture, and that is everything from point clouds and meshes to converting films and tracking that kind of stuff, to converting that into meshes. We have a complete group that is dedicated to AR and VR kind of initiatives. All of this stuff is really kind of bleeding edge right now. So to see where the industries are going and what's being adopted as the overall industry standards and that kind of stuff, it really is, what I mean? It's a fun place to be, and we're sandwiched between all the M&E group, the media and entertainment group in San Francisco is sandwiched between all of these different initiatives. We have 3D printing that's happening. We have a separate building here in San Francisco called Pier 9. So,
Nice.
So that's where a lot of the 3D printing and creative marketing kind of stuff is being done. But they also have, a test lab for, printing out bio stuff. So, if you need a new kidney, that's the kind of stuff that
I might need a new liver at some point.
Yeah, I've seen that. So, but then in the back, they have this open area for artists to just use like gargantuan 3D printers and routing machines, and what are those called, hyperjets that cut metal, and that kind of stuff. So that's all there too. So it's I know that sometimes it feels like there's this evil empire, big brothery kind of stuff. But the reality is Autodesk is just filled with people with huge amounts of passion for all of this kind of technology stuff. It really is. What I mean? In a lot of ways, I'm proud to be associated with it. So
I love it. That's great. And like, what do you think the market's kind of split up into? I mean, obviously you've got a large percentage to the game, a large percentage to film, but like if we were to talk specifically 3ds Max, what are the percentages that you would roughly be able to rattle off? If you want to include more numbers, the better. I'm just curious.
So the Max team really sees two different workflows. So when we take a look at long-term features, we either determine whether it is a part of a rendering workflow or a part of a real-time workflow. As the needs of you guys, as you guys start developing more and more, the silos that we used to consider the industries are getting more and more blurry. As architects want to do more and more of a gamified presentation of their building, to have more freedom to walk around. When James Cameron comes in and shows us how he uses more of a real-time kind of workflow to set up shots and, do set layout and previs, when, film guys are trying to, they're just this, and then the games guys are always pushing for more and more realism. So this whole concept of, you know what I mean? I would never need that, or I would never need that. You know, those kinds of times are really getting blurrier and less defined. So, in order to kind of make that a little bit easier to understand, there really is just a rendering workflow or a real-time workflow, and then even those two blur a little bit, Alan. So, you know what I mean? So there's a whole bunch of features in Max that will support both, but you know, the things that you're doing, Mitch is doing, Adam Watkins is doing, all of that, compared to what an architect or somebody is trying to do. We're all trying to achieve that same storytelling capability. The only real difference is resources and the amount of time and that kind of thing. So just about everybody that I've ever met that sits in a design visualization house, including myself, considers themselves to be just as much a storyteller as somebody that works, in a film house. So to try to make those kinds of things more efficient and get you guys more get more done in less amount of time. And then the real-time stuff, like I said, whether it's James Cameron trying to do some previs or an architect using the same kind of steps that a AAA game is using to develop their stuff, the real, a trigger for a door in Gears is the same as a trigger for a door in an architectural presentation. So to bring those kinds of tool sets. So that's the way the Max team is kind of approaching, developing further from now on. So, I hope that doesn't give you the impression that any one will be less or more or any of those kinds of things.
No. Swiss Army knife of 3D.
So that's where I can assure you in 5 years, people that are thinking, well, we would never do anything that is, real time as far as a presentation is concerned. You're either putting yourself in a collapsing box, or you're open to new opportunities. If you think that I would never need to render out stuff, on the opposite side of that spectrum, again, you're limiting. So, as more and more screens go up in more and more different places, more and more content is going to need to be generated. And as technology goes faster and faster towards, those kinds of heads-up displays you were talking about, then it needs to be more and more responsive. I've seen some really kick-ass stuff where some of the latest Reese Witherspoon movie, Wild.
You're asking the wrong guy.
Yeah. Well,
I've not been dragged to that one yet.
Yeah, turn to your girlfriend, ask her. But what they did was they captured it in such a way that people can be immersed into the movie. So there's a scene apparently where Reese is sitting on a park bench and talking to somebody, and you can sit on the park bench as if you were eavesdropping on the whole conversation.
I heard about this. I was actually I was interviewing someone the other day about this. They did like an additional 40 minutes. Actually, I think one of my buddies, he's working on this, and they did an additional 40 minutes for that project that was just specifically for marketing, so that way you could get immersed into it. Anyway, sorry, I just totally threw you off there.
No, not at all. You just confirmed that, when an automotive dealership wants you to experience a vehicle that maybe they don't have on the showroom. And all of these things are going to, we've seen them in sci-fi movies as things that are amazing, and now we're starting to achieve them. So
yeah.
So those are all the kinds of, when you ask me about what we've seen as far as technologically, I think the whole industry of projection mapping also, to create cool displays on the sides of buildings are going to replace all of the, the billboards that are static. You know what I mean? And it's going to be more an equal amount of artistic, display as well as informative.
Yeah, absolutely.
So So that's another great, thing that we're seeing starting to grow. But, and that's why, we're so excited that Max is so versatile in all of that kind of stuff.
If you want to
You
get in,
asked,
sorry, go ahead.
well, you were asking about some of the numbers, and I don't have, exactly specific numbers, but, I do know that 3ds Max is the most used M&E software for games, films, and designs, visualization stuff. When it comes to number of seats, we're the second most downloaded software from Autodesk.com. We're the second most downloaded software from Autodesk.edu. We're the third most pirated software. And some people, well, I mean, that's not super exciting, but but what it means is that there's a lot of people needing it. You know what I mean? So, and we're the second most used software. So when you talk about, just the number of hours that are logged on Autodesk softwares, we're number 2. So, you know what I mean? There's a lot of rendering and reality stuff going on,
Right.
in 3ds Max. So
I gotta ask, what's the number one most pirated software?
well, number one at
Windows or?
Autodesk.
Oh,
Well,
right.
number one at Autodesk is AutoCAD. Always
Yep.
AutoCAD. That's the king. That's the gorilla in the room.
Yep.
So
And certain countries out there are doing lots of architectural stuff and not paying for it.
and
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
well, we were just having this discussion today with some of the the big wigs, and we want to make sure we're trying to figure out, without being this police state, how can we encourage you guys to help contribute to the development of software? Because, really what you're paying for with our software is not just the CEO's salary. There's the hundreds of people that were, a part of making it, and the R&D of pushing it forward, and the Q&A of making sure that it is as good as it can possibly be. Those are all the things that you're paying for.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so,
You're paying for the future of it, really.
in many ways, yeah, a good portion of what you're paying for is its future. So
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, I completely agree. And there's a difference between getting educated in something, and then, like, obviously, people who are making profits is a whole other thing. I will fast forward a little bit. I was just going to say, like, you kind of touched on education, and that's kind of where I want to move on to a little bit, was just more to do with, actually, one good thing, and I'm out of the loop a little bit, but I remember you guys mentioning this in between, well, maybe not you, but in between drinks, about kind of the change with Maya and Max in terms of education. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's now moving more to like a free platform for the educational software.
yeah, so everybody that has an EDU or is a part of a educational process gets Autodesk software for free.
That's awesome. That's really cool, because I think that's going to benefit a lot of people, especially starting out, to get to have access to something. I mean, even 10 years ago, I was hearing about people in high school having access to Macs, and I was pissed because I would have loved that when I was starting out. But I think that's brilliant, because it means that people can get access to something without needing to put out an arm and a leg to do it. Especially now with like online training and everything else, it kind of means that you can kind of jump into 3D and start doing stuff for relatively nothing to
Yeah,
get started.
we have a learning channel on YouTube, and it's the second most subscribed to learning channel at Autodesk, second only to Autodesk's learning channel. So again, we have more people looking at Max videos on our learning channel than even AutoCAD does. So that's like one of the categories that we actually do beat AutoCAD at, but number of subscribers to our learning channel. But there's no doubt that, what I mean, 3ds Max has huge capabilities, and comes, with that comes huge responsibilities in learning it. And I would never trust anyone who told me that they knew everything about 3ds Max and how to do everything. So I'm constantly learning new stuff every day. Like you said, you're learning new stuff every day. So
Yep.
there's a lot of, what I mean? And that's just what we make, and then all the stuff you guys make that hits, all the different areas of social media. Just, there's just so much community out there. And I think, like I said, that's one of the coolest parts about 3ds Max is the community is tight and supportive and loves to show off and has a lot of good things to talk about. So
No, it's amazing. I mean, we talked about Peter Watch You before. Now there's like a million other people doing great stuff. You got websites like ScriptSpot. You got CG Talk. I mean, there's phenomenal amounts of people out there doing awesome stuff. So I love it. I love the whole community for that, because there's a lot of creative people who are doing really cool stuff and pushing Max and other products. I mean, I'm not just Max, but I jump back and forth between Maya, but yeah, I mean, for me,
well, and I totally respect that. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't have a problem with that at all. I want you guys, my first priority is that you guys are successful.
mhm.
And if you guys can be successful with Max, that's what you know what I mean? I'm trying to build, but if your needs exceed what we can do in Max, then I pray that Maya is the software that you guys are finding success with. And, I know that there are third party and other products out there that you guys need to tie into. And we're trying to establish relationships with those places. Again, because your success is our success. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you bring that up more just to point out that the conversations we're having aren't biased in any way. Like I don't want it to sound like it's a product pitch for Max, because it isn't. Like I love Max. I've been with it from the beginning, and there was like a period in '01 that I did switch to Maya for a little bit, because I seeked getting more control from what I was doing specific to particles, and then Oleg came around the corner in Max 5 introducing, or the extension of Max 5 introducing particle flow, and bit by bit I got left behind being like, crap, like, I can't do this stuff in Maya that I can do in Max, and that's the thing is, like, along the way, everyone seeks what strengths they need, and in some cases it might be more to do with just, you love one package, but your employer uses this, so you got to learn that, and, but for me, I've always come back to Max just because, for speed and just for the sake of it, I can get things done in that, especially with plugins like Fume Effects, Thinking Particles, that I have not seen in other packages, and I'm always open to explore other things, and I'm never biased about that. But I don't use Max for the nostalgic reason. It's because I can get shit done quick. So that's always been my thing.
Well, that's the best news is when you guys tell me that you use it because you're successful. You know what I mean? That's why you use it, is because you're successful, not because of muscle memory, not because, you paid for it and that's what you have. It's just because that's what makes you successful. And that's what the Max team constantly is looking to do to make it better for you, to be honest with you. I know that it kind of sounds like a Budweiser commercial, like you should have the soft music in the background, but that's the God's honest truth, is that we want you to be successful.
So again, just from your experience, because I think you've got such a wide altitude view of the whole industry. I mean, for people starting out at the beginning of their career and getting into 3D, I mean, this might be a tricky question, but what do you think are some of the biggest hurdles people face when they're first delving into the industry and kind of getting their foot in the door?
One of the things that I do through the course of the year is I'm a mentor and a judge for this organization called Skills USA. And Skills USA brings students from high school and secondary schools together to compete in a number of different categories. So they have their big events. It was in Kansas City for the last 10 years. I think it's moving to St. Louis or Louisville. I have to check my flights. But
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, it brings the kids together, to compete in everything from baking and hairstyling and auto repair and motorcycle repair, all the way down to 3D animation and visualization. That's a category. And then there's also game layout. And the kids come in and they're like, I'm a character guy. I'm a character guy. I want to do characters. And I'm like, I love that. But if you go into any studio and they don't need a character guy right now, the door is over here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So when I try to mentor them as far as being a solution to being as much of a complete solution as possible, to not to master, but to understand all the different components that go into creating a show or creating a game or that kind of stuff, really makes them more valuable. So that's what I try to point out to them, is just being the kind of value that a potential employer is looking for.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I mean, I really stand by that. I think that when you're first starting out in the industry, you should take whatever you can get. And by that, I mean in terms of positions, not like someone's offered me, to work for free, I'll take that. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
because does happen. I've been hearing that a lot lately, which annoys me. But in terms of, like, I do think take what you can get. Like, even Paul Neal, one of his students, was talking to me about, should I go and take a job right now as a compositor in film, or should I wait and try and get a 3D job? And I was like, take that comp job, because I mean, obviously, compositing team is going to care only about you being able to do the job that you're hired to do. So don't say, okay, I want to get out and do 3D, because they don't care about that. But you can learn the experience, and still learning other areas that are related to your industry are really going to benefit you down the line. And even starting as like a generalist, I think it's the best way to start, because that way you have a good understanding of the whole industry in terms of the whole department, I should say. So that way a little bit about lighting, a little bit about modeling, a little bit about animation, and you can kind of find what your element is and kind of go from there. So I think it's really vital to do. One story, I've kind of mentioned this, I think, at Autodesk University. I think I gave a bit of a rant about this, but I've got just a perfect analogy, but I've got two friends of mine years ago. One, her name was Kate. She started out at a studio I was at as a client service girl. She's a client service person. She came in, would get coffees for people, run around, talk to clients, just kind of do her bit, and that was her way of like paying her dues. And
I still get people coffee. What are you talking about?
Hey, I did that today at Starbucks too. But my whole point is, no, but like, it's just more about like getting in whatever way you can, because that way you pay your dues and then you get your job. And I see that a lot too, where people just don't want to, even step there. And I remember one guy I knew who's a really talented guy, but like he basically was like, I'm only going to go work for Weta or ILM. Like anyone else, like I'm just not interested. So he proceeded for like 5 years to turn away every single project. So 5 years later, Kate was working in Montreal and London on like every big movie, and he was still essentially, as far as experience was concerned, a junior, just because he let his kind of ego get in the way, and he didn't want to take anything that was beneath him because he had a higher calling. And eventually he kind of got in the industry and did his thing. But like the thing is that Kate did that little bit of a job, then she started as a junior compositor, then she was a senior, then she was flying all over the world, everything paid for, getting to do what she wanted to do. And it's about, you need to get in there and you just kind of get your feet wet and go from there. And like if you don't, then you're going to miss out on a lot of great opportunities, because you're thinking that there's this perfect plan out there, rather than kind of stumbling and fumbling and eventually kind of getting your bearings.
Well, I mean, I thank my lucky stars every day that I get to be the product manager for 3ds Max. And I've told and shown some of you, I mean, 3ds Max is so personal to me that I've actually tattooed the logo on my, you know what I mean? I have a tattoo of the logo on me.
I was just about the joke, like, what did you get a tattoo? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So going back to to the compositing thing, can you imagine what a stronger animator, or a stronger, 3D person you are if you understand how those are going to be used in a compositing workflow later on?
Hmm.
And, to sell yourself again as this total solution to a potential employer. I have experience in this, and that makes me a better person or a better candidate than the 300 other applications you have, because I can make the compositor, the bridge to the compositor and their work more efficient because of the things that I can do inside of my 3D application. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? That's a great sell. That's a great story. I agree.
And even when you're looking more at the bigger picture, the more you understand the entire process, the more eventually that's going to lead you to being the lead of a department, being able to do a lot more because you understand the process. And even as a compositor, like understanding a bit of 3D, I know some amazing compositors who came from 3D, and because of that, they're able to communicate to a 3D artist like, hey, you know what, I need a Z-depth pass, I need this, and if you make the shader, a matte for this, they're able to talk to them in their terminology. And I always say that you should learn at least a little bit about the three surrounding areas near you, so that way you can work more efficiently because you know how to communicate to the people that you need stuff from, and you know how to make stuff for the next person who's going to take your stuff. So that way your work isn't being kicked back at the 11th hour because you weren't doing it the right way that they need it. So I think, yeah, the more you understand that, the more efficiently you're going to be able to work within that department.
Hmm.
But I mean, one other thing, just again going down the whole rabbit hole of education, but um, where do you think are some of the locations around the world that are really in high demand of 3D people right now? Like, what are some of the big hotspots worldwide?
Well, I've never been anywhere that isn't. So, I know that, we're there are people out there listening, that are struggling and hoping, to find their opportunity soon. And I encourage them to keep trying because the opportunities are out there. And like I said, I haven't really gone anywhere where talented people with good attitudes aren't in demand. So there are new studios uh, popping up around in Vancouver. I know of some, and I know that there's a new studio starting in New York City that's a Max House. So I mean, and then all of the opportunities that people are well, I mean, you found great opportunities throughout the course of your career. I mean, I'm not sure exactly. I don't have a great a map with a whole bunch of pins in it, but
Hmm.
like I said, the demand for gaming and real-time presentations, whether it be on a mobile device or a phone, all the way up to console. You know what I mean? We see trends ebbing and flowing and all of that stuff, but the overall is we predict growth. And as far as film and VFX, we see, what I mean, studios doing well and studios that are struggling and laying people off. And you know what I mean? Is that because of demand or is that because of management?
Hmm. Yeah.
That's another, what I mean? We can debate that on another episode, but you know what I mean? But the demand is definitely there, or making your mark in indie work, or all of that kind of stuff. It's really exciting. And like it's what I see for everything from augmented reality and virtual reality, and Oculus, and the new Microsoft pieces, and everything is all going to need your talents. If you're listening to this and interested in this kind of stuff, all of that stuff is going to need your talents.
A couple more things, but like one thing I was going to ask is like in terms of film and VFX. I mean, are there any good learning resources that you'd recommend for people wanting to like get their 3D on and learn some cool stuff?
Yeah, your podcast.
Sweet. I'll send you a Starbucks gift card right after
Okay.
this.
And I'll send you that email to the Gunslinger.
Done. But okay, like, what else? I mean, obviously you're gonna have a pretty big idea of like what are the key sites that are really great for people that you could recommend.
I do. We just added lynda.com to the Max experience, so you'll be seeing that soon in a future release. Um, maybe sooner than later, but what I mean. So they have great resources. Of course, the folks at Digital Tutors have always been friends and done great work. We have our own learning channel. There's the stuff that you guys just feel compelled to do and post up on YouTube. You know what I mean? Putting links up on even on our the 3ds Max Facebook page. We have get stuff there and on the area. I don't know if people know about the area.
They should.
that Autodesk puts together. Area.autodesk.com. So no www, just area.autodesk.com is again another one of those community sites where tutorials go up and showcased work and free stuff, and so another great little community of people for all of our Autodesk media and entertainment kind of stuff up there. So
cool. Yeah, I'll put links to all this stuff too, so it's going to be easy for people to access your YouTube channel as well and a few other ones. So what do you think are some of the key areas people should focus on when they start out? And again, that is one that could be taken any way. But I mean, I guess I'd mentioned starting as a generalist is always good too. I mean, your experience, you did a bit of visualization, stuff like that. I mean, if you were to work in film or games, I mean, what are what are the more high demand positions that you find that studios are always reaching out for? I know effects is one, because probably 3 times today I've had studios reach out to me saying, can you recommend people? And this week alone too. So what are some of the probably more high demand areas right now that people want to hire 3D people for?
Well, like I said, people that are going to be your customers, the consumers of your work are really excited about how they can take design data and present it in a real-time environment. So, you know what I mean? Whether you're bringing it into Unity or, presenting, that's all mystical, magical stuff for the typical product designer, architect, those kinds of things. So, we're seeing a lot of energy in that arena. And it's, one of the things that we got excited about at Autodesk. And so that's why we acquired a company called BitSquid, so that we could have our own game engine to start testing this stuff and optimizing our workflows, so that we would have something in-house that we could really start banging on. And then that will benefit all people that are trying to do this, real-time environments for, and then again, the little mobile games is again another thing that's growing quite a bit. Again, I want to, like you said, people are desperate for, fast, good, quality kinds of VFX shots, things that they can get, that they can rely on you for. We talk about being a generalist, but then to have a calling card, something that you excel at a little bit, in the industry, to kind of set yourself, apart, or give yourself a name, to something to really focus on, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good thing too, is like to niche yourself, try and find a way to kind of stand out from the crowd. And I think you mentioned that before, as in like learning compositing or something else too, at least that way, if you can start to have a bit more grasp overall of, a lot of areas, then you can kind of start to become like that guy who is the synergy within your own studio, even that kind of bridges it together. Like learning to script, for instance, can help you become, let's say, I know some animators at Weta who are freaking amazing. They also script, and I think that really benefited them along the way to be able to, do some procedural animation, help with rigging, do a lot of stuff. But having that kind of extra ability that makes you kind of one up your competition means that you stand out when it's on your resume that I can do these other things that really kind of make me this special, unique butterfly. I just got like two more questions, but I mean, one I guess would be like more going back to the development of Macs, but what do you think, like how do you typically pick features or come up with ideas of like where you want to go with Macs? I mean, do you just throw them all in a hat and pick them out, or how's it go?
Yeah, it's a big hat.
Really big hat.
Well, the reality is, and I think I've said this before, there is no shortage of things that we want to do for Macs. Everything from, you know what I mean, what we call a very heavy lift, something that might take years and years to accomplish, to the little things that might only take somebody like a Tom Hudson, a Peter Wagi, like a week to do. You know what I mean? So you give that to a wizard and it's done in a week. But there's no shortage of that, and that's really, that's where I really am excited or rely on Gunslingers to help guide our charter members, to help guide the priorities, because the reality is I want to do it all and I want to do it tomorrow. Also the reality from what I've heard is you guys want me to do it all and you guys always want it tomorrow. So, right. I mean, I understand that, but there are only, 24 hours in a day. I think that what the Max team has created for you guys coming up, I'm excited to show you, because it's very, it's very exciting what I'm seeing them accomplish. But, the truth is, I put together what I consider to be a picture of what the next Max might be, and then I take it out on the road and I go, what do you think? And, I mean, I've only really done that once already. I mean, I'm still pretty new to but I think we're hitting a lot of the things that you guys are asking for. And we take a look at what's up on User Voice. Again, another way that you can, get your ideas to the Max development team. I see every idea that goes up on User Voice in real time. So when you hit post or vote, I get an email that kind of shows that to me.
So you actually can vote on features and bump them up?
Yeah.
Sweet.
It's not a mandate. So, you know what I mean? There are some things on there that won't happen. And there are some things on there that, might only have a couple of votes, but are really creative. So, you know what I mean? Then, so that's a resource. The charters are a resource. I get great feedback on beta. When I come visit you guys, you give me great ideas. So
cool.
And there's really no shortage. You know what I mean? It's really just answering priorities for you guys. So
that's great, man. And I thought I'd leave with one final question, just because of what we were talking about before. I just wanted to be a dick and say, so where do you think Max is heading in the future, and when can we expect these features? Just because you're like, well, if you ask me stuff like that, then obviously I'm gonna have to go corporate speak.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I know frustrates everybody is the fact that we are a publicly owned company, and
I was waiting for the public word.
well, you know what I mean? And I like I said, I am dying to show you some of the stuff that we've been working on. And if I could, I can assure you I would, hire the plane to fly over your house and have the banner behind it, showing you some of the stuff. But what happens, from a legal standpoint, what happens is the minute I say this is going to be in, so let's say I say a flux capacitor is going to be in the next Chevy, then no money that comes into the bank can be recognized until the flux capacitor happens. There's a whole bunch of people that aren't getting paid. There's a whole bunch of people that, money that's not going to R&D. There's a whole bunch of money that just sits there and waits for the flux capacitor. and that's just not, that's the law. And so if you know what I mean, if you and I, Alan, we're a software company, and you know what I mean, and it was just us, and we promised a flux capacitor and it didn't come out for 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
well, you know what I mean, there would be no problem, because you know what I mean, that we're not publicly held.
That's right.
But what it is it's really to protect you, the customer, you the artist. Because if I did promise you something and you said, okay, I'm excited about that, I'm buying some Macs tomorrow, knowing that this is coming up, and then it didn't come out for 5 years, you'd be like, what the F? You promised. Or there's a good chance it didn't come out at all.
It's like when Red Bull promised it would give you wings, and they end up getting sued over it. I actually had drinks with...
Where's my wings?
It blows my mind. I had drinks with one of the main marketing guys from, I think he's in the Italy office, anyway, in Europe, for Red Bull, and it was actually the week that happened. So like, we're just in shock that like.
Are you you're kidding, right?
No, Red Bull got sued because it does not give you wings, and they lost. Like they had to pay out. So only in America.
so I hope you can appreciate that these laws are here to protect everybody involved. So, you know what I mean? Like I said, I am dying to show you what we've been working on. And, you know what I mean? I'm really hoping, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we've hit a lot of check boxes for you, coming up soon. But until then, I hope that you appreciate some of the stuff that we've already released. And, I hope that some of the things that we've done with our 2 extensions already is showing you the commitment, is showing you the excitement, is showing you the talent of the people working on Macs. So
you guys are killing it. Like, all the big movies that are coming out right now, like all the big, especially disaster, end of the world films, like everything that I can see in movie trailers, like I know the studio is doing it, I know the software being used, and a majority of it all is Macs. And again, I can safely say that because I like to think I'm not biased. I use Macs, I love Macs, but I will use whatever. I'm a cheap date like that. And but yeah, you guys are killing it. It's everywhere, and it's doing great.
Like I said, your success is our success. So, choose the thing that helps you get there. And that's why we provide you with alternatives. Mm-hmm. And that's, what I mean? And sometimes that makes it difficult. Sometimes it makes it harder for you, to pick. But better to have alternatives to guarantee your success than giving you one path to follow. And
that's right.
And you know what I mean? So we're lucky to have some of the best software in the world, some of the best people working on it. And I hope that benefits your success. That's really what it boils down to.
That's so awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. This has been actually really exciting for me too, just to kind of get to talk to you and get a lot of insight into Macs as well as Autodesk, and as well as you and your background as well. So, I mean, thanks so much. And also, do you have any last final thoughts that you want to share with anyone and everyone?
I think what I'd like to do, Alan, is set up another date in the not too distant future to kind of tell you about some of the things that when I can tell you, so that I can get your reaction. So that's what I'd like to leave you with, is until next time.
That's great. I love it. And thanks again, man. I really appreciate it.
It's an honor. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Eddie has so much insight and so many key takeaways to get from this. So thank you again, Eddie, for taking the time out to put together this interview. It was really great just to get a lot of insight into both Eddie as well as a lot more of the background of like what goes on behind the scenes. I think it's really fascinating. Autodesk is one of the top software companies in the world. They're massive, and to get a bit of insight into what goes on behind the scenes is really, really awesome. So as I mentioned before, I just put out a very large article. It's about 10, 15 pages long, going through the do's and don'ts, more covering a very specific way that a lot of people tend to think is how you go about getting promotions or asking for more money, and how to not do that basically, but also a massive case study on how to actually go about doing it the right way. So a risk-free approach to getting a promotion, getting more money. Also, in that email, I'll be sending out a PDF file, which is more of a breakdown, step-by-step recipe for how to do this. So that's one of a few really insightful emails I'm going to be sending out this week. So if you want, go to www.allanmckay.com/inside. So that's ALLANMCKAY.com/inside. Now, next week, I'm going to be interviewing Sol Rogers. He's an authority on virtual reality and augmented reality and doing some really, really amazing stuff. If you want to know more about virtual reality and where it's heading, about Oculus Rift, as well as Microsoft's HoloGen, then you need to get on this. So that being said, the last thing I want to leave you with is this is something I really want to get a lot of insight from you guys. I'm going to be doing a lot more solo episodes again soon, so a lot more really key content with that. But I also want to see what you guys are thinking about doing interviews such as this one with Eddie. If you guys are interested in getting a bit more of a behind-the-scenes view of a lot of software companies out there, then I'm happy to put together a few interviews specifically with other companies like Activision or with Cebus or with the guys from Oculus Rift or Microsoft, other companies like that. So if that's something that you found really insightful about this specific episode, then I can definitely do a lot more of these. Last of all, there's going to be show notes printed up for everything we discussed today. If you go to allanmckay.com/23, that's episode 23, and they'll have links to everything that we talked about today. All right, thanks again, guys, for listening. And yeah, let me know what you think about this episode. Leave a comment on the blog, and can't wait to hear from you. Thanks again.